How to we? Good thing I teach college. Shit, now I don't know what to do. Hang on. Fuck.
I am always here to prove it. Stubborn and doesn't give it to me. Well, it's right in there.
It says how can we fix it?
Okay, very good. So welcome to PowerPoint 101. I'm Bill Gardner. How can we fix it? Can, C-A-N, is that correct? Okay, well, some of you are tardy. Go ahead and turn your phones off now. I'm not putting up with phones ringing in my class. No, thanks for coming today. This is me. Did you just call me a dick? Where'd you read it? Oh, I'm sorry I didn't return your phone call, by the way. I am just kidding for those of you turning your phones off.
I usually do it anyway out of respect. I just forgot for it in here.
So, I'm kind of in a weird position. I spent 20 years in the field before I ever even looked at security. So I was a system administrator. Now we have kids like, well, you're not a kid. Brad is a former student of mine who went to a 4-year school and graduated. And isn't that right, Brad? He's like, am I here? Who is this? Bob went to. So anyway, so we have people who come through 4-year programs as well. So I come from I'm a self-taught hacker, quite frankly. I have degrees in political science and journalism, which makes me perfectly qualified to teach what I teach. Well, exactly. Ooh, here we go. It's already down the drain. So we have all these attempts to fix the skills gap. There's DoD 8570. There's Security Plus. Oh, Security Plus, CEH, CISSP. Drink. You all need to drink. OSCP. Awesome. Some OSCPs. There's not that many of us. So we have the DoD 8570. We have NICE, the very nice framework, the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education. They released a publication in August, which is a sort of revision, which comes up with a bunch of different things. You can read their website right here. Oh shit. You don't think it's secret or something? Does anyone know how to use a computer? Hang on.
I'll do that. Yeah, you're on the wrong desktop.
Okay. This one? Anyway, the links in the damn slides. So if you want to go look at it. So you have a heat map. They come up with all this taxonomy to do, famous hackery stuff and to fix the problem. Here's the actual URL. We also have the National Cyberwatch Center. I'm working currently on their curriculum panel to come up with standardized curriculum. I've worked with children. Gen Cyber this summer we had a residential camp at Marshall University of 25 students, 12 boys, 12 girls. That's not right. There was an extra boy. We actually had more students than we advertised for. They had to write a very long narrative about why they wanted to come. And we did all kinds of cool things. We picked locks. We hacked. We did forensics. We really need to start with our children. Gen Cyber, there's not currently a camp in Kentucky. There's not currently a camp in Ohio. We have the only one in West Virginia. In order to apply, you just have to be a nonprofit or a university. So if you're interested in that, check it out. We have community initiatives. This is Richwood Scientific in my hometown of Richwood, West Virginia. So people who used to live in Silicon Valley moved to West Virginia because they figured out they could buy a house for about the same amount of money that they paid for their cars. And they love it here. So they can do all the things they want to do outdoorsy. They rock climb, bike, paddle in the lake. But one of the things that they found was you had a lot of people who were of working age, drug-free, which is key in West Virginia, unfortunately, and did not have the skills to get a job. So they started teaching free Python classes. So now they're in their second incarnation, I believe, of Python. They also started a company called Silicon Holler. And, John Sammons, my colleague, was saying Silicon Holler years ago, and I'm like, you're going to have to get that trademarked or something, or someone's going to rip it off from you. So, actually, there's a company now in Richwood called Silicon Holler, and what they do is they pick up contracts so the people that they train can actually get jobs. So, from the community. So, there's many different ways into this field. And if you're here thinking, I'm going to give you the answer to how to fix the cyber skills gap, you're drunk. Because I'm here to ask you that question. So I wish we had a microphone. Does anyone have any views on? Well, I've talked to a number of people already. So basically, I've done 5 minutes. How long do I have? Jesus. So I'll make this like one of my lectures. So the other day I was eating corned beef, and no, I'm just kidding. So what I've done is I've actually registered a domain. If you're late, you're screwed. No one's. We already took attendance. So I registered a domain called theskillsgap.org. And what I want to do is open it up. You can email it your ideas about how we fill the cyber skills gaps. So we've asked, I've talked to feds who say, well, we've talked to industry. Did they come talk to you?
Nope.
I mean, from the community is from where the stuff needs to come from. So I'm just trying to start the ball rolling. I'll need help, I'm sure. For one thing, I can't get the website to work. Got the email to work. I haven't had time. I was like rushing around here, lost my phone, and the email wasn't working. And I realized I'd registered the emails in for. And I kept trying to log into it, and I'm like, why can't I log into this? Oh, shit. Anyway, so I had to go delete it and do it again. But so I'd like to do something similar to the PTES. Who's familiar with the PTES? Penetration Testing Execution Framework, where instead of listening to academics tell us what we need, the community can tell government, community-based organizations, and academia what we need. It's different from a C-level, and my fear is they've gone and talked to a bunch of C-levels who said, well, we need this and that, but did the C-levels actually have ever done the work? I'm probably going to get sued, boghead. Who has a Security Plus? Was it a good measure of your ability to do the job? It's a good measure of your ability to take a test. Unfortunately, oh God, I'm going to talk about ISC squared now. The CISSP is similar. And what we have in college is people who are like, I'm in college, I want a CISSP so I can get a job. I'm like, there is a requirement that you actually work in those fields for a period of time. So that's also, I think they come out with another one like a junior CISP, associate. So, but, there's different ways of doing this. Currently working in West Virginia on a God, I hate that fucking word. Cyber security workforce initiative. So one of the things they're looking at doing is perhaps doing the same model as the Python test. So we don't have a lot of bandwidth in West Virginia, but what we do have are National Guard armories, and they have the best bandwidth, or schools have the best bandwidth. So if we can come up with some sort of community-based initiative to actually teach people the skills they need in order to get a job, other than saying, I don't know, maybe you should get your Security Plus or CEH. Has anyone ever taken a CEH? The answers are wrong. That's true of the Security Plus as well. And not everyone's going to go get a OSCP. It's Well, of course, I'm awesome and everything, but I mean, I did it and it about killed me. So we need to figure out of taking somebody like an unemployed coal miner. Unfortunately, there's a bunch of those in West Virginia, or people who have been displaced, and figure out some way of moving them into information security jobs. Almost said cyber again, so that they have some options. And if we do a community-based sort of program, then they might even actually get to stay at home. And for an Appalachian, the ability to stay at home, because your family is there, you have a house you've owned for 400 years. It's an exaggeration, but would really be a plus. So I'm opening up the floor. Does anyone have anything to say? And I'm sorry here, I told you this was a talk. This is actually a question session where I ask you the questions and you tell me what you think the answers are.
Isn't it like Jeopardy?
It's like Jeopardy, right? So anybody? Yes, Mr. Baird.
I think a lot of people think that it takes, you spend all your lifetime when you're going through college and getting all these certs, and it takes years and years to get into the business. Myself, just like Bill, self-taught, and there are so many resources out there. Not to take anything away from Bill, where he teaches actually in school.
Well, we didn't have degrees in what we do now, and as a result, we didn't have the option. No, it's not a start with the music degree debate. Please go ahead.
So I'm in the transition from being in the music business for 2 years over to IT.
Did you work at Equifax? Keep going.
And the reason for that is
Ow.
my job was just troubleshooting audio.
Right.
And so I took that same type of methodology over computers and was troubleshooting how can I print, how can I get my network printer to print. The same type of troubleshooting. And it's all self-taught, and the amount of material that's available online now for free is absolutely
Yeah. So if you're not actually picking up some skills on your own, you're probably being pretty damn lazy about it. I agree. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
So, kind of a twofold from the learning side. We need to be focused much more on hands-on.
Agree.
There's a whole lot of conversation, a whole lot of talking, not a lot of doing. And then on the same side, the assessment. Employers need a way to figure out whether you can do the work they're hiring for. So why not do a performance assessment to see if you can do the work that they're trying to hire you to do? While the certs are great in checking your textbook knowledge,
Right.
I need you to do a task. How about I create a test that tests if you can do the task I need you to do? That's a lot of work, but if you're hiring something where you have a lot of people in the same role, there's no reason not to build a small performance assessment to determine if that person can do the work.
How many people have seen a job posting for someone who has 40 years in information security? I mean, did they...
10 years of Windows 10 is popular.
10 years of Windows 10, yeah, so... Yes, sir.
I'd just like to say, though, you have to be careful because I work in the financial industry, and depending on the state and local laws, you're not allowed to give somebody a test on an interview. There are certain HR restrictions that you need to be careful of. So just clear it with your organization.
Maybe
Yeah.
the law needs to
Well,
be changed.
I can't answer why because I'm not in
You
the
can still do a
HR.
CTF and take those who are the top performers and say, if you're interested in a job, come talk to me.
You just so you know, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm like middle of the road.
I'm not saying part of the interview.
Right. Yeah. But just, you do need to be careful because there are legalities in the hiring process.
Yeah, it is very... As someone who hired people for 10 years before I came back and did academia, it gets weird out there. But I think that is on the right path.
How do we get people who actually can do?
That's the question. That really is the question.
So I got an idea.
Okay.
All right, so like you just identified a skills gap, right? So what if you were to take the word cyber and
Oh, God.
bring it back?
Drink.
Not yet. Hold on. Bring it back to its real meaning, right? Steer the ship. So take the skills that you have.
I thought it was a different real meeting, but go ahead.
And if you can go, and if you have the talent to do this, or maybe you go get yourself more experience in this, start mentoring.
I agree. Mentoring is very important.
Steal those people away from the profession they were doing to the thing they didn't know they would love this much, right? Put that skills gap into another area of your business and their profession, but gaps that are easier to fill, right? If you can't get people who can just do CTS, but maybe you mentor someone, and then you fill the gap that you.
And there's also the question: if you can do a CTF, can you manage? If you need to manage, so or can you critically think, or can you evaluate sources? I don't think that anyone that's on Facebook can evaluate sources, and information literacy is a huge problem in this country.
I think that brings up another point, though. You listed some excellent traits that a seasoned security professional will be good at.
Mm-hmm.
But does every gap that exists in our industry need someone of that caliber to fill it?
That's the question I'm at. That's really the key to this question.
If not, then how do we bridge that? How do we make it more of a trade skill and identify? We don't need every person coming to the industry to be able to do everything.
So, trade skill.
A lot of people to do these simple things that we've quantified.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
I gave a talk here last year, ended up with pitchforks and torches called Making Our Professional More Professional, where I said that we're not a trade, but maybe we are.
We are more and more.
This is a trade craft, right?
We are the mechanics of the information world. Nobody likes us until their computer's broken, and they all come looking for us.
Well, is that the reason there's a skills gap? I mean, if you look at what people are paying, first of all, it costs how much do it cost to get a clearance? Like 20 grand or something. So, and you go apply for a job. I thought it was classified. I didn't want to say. So, you go apply for a job. You look out there, and probably 90% of them say they want a clearance, and they want it now. So that's another question that we need to figure out, and that's not an easy question because that's way outside of our control.
I think there's also really too much of a heavy focus on a degree or a certificate or something, and this is probably an HR problem, at least from where I come from. Whereas I'm a big, I focus on curiosity, on someone's desire to dig into something, to learn something, and those type of people that self-learn, question things, and maybe the skills gaps are there because you start forcing people into, you try to mold the person for the job as opposed to, finding the position that's right for the person that they're interested in.
Some of the best people that I've found in this field, people who are just excel at this, are people who have philosophy degrees, or liberal arts degrees.
Mm-hmm. 2 degrees in liberal arts right here. Don't tell Adrian that, please. Or no degrees. And that's fine. That's fine. I think that might change moving forward because now that we have degrees in this field, that's going to be a career path as well. I'm not saying you have to have a degree, although I wonder. I mean, are we like doctors?
Not saying, what if the personality type that, excels in this field does not excel in an institutional learning environment?
That's fine.
Also, the
how
time.
do you get degrees?
I know a lot of people like that.
How much does security change over 2 years, 4 years?
A lot.
So how can you stay current? By the time you come out of that, you're kind of behind the curve.
Well, you can't. But here's the thing: as an educator, I can't teach my students everything. I can teach them what MMAP is. I can teach them what the OSI model is. I can teach them how the three-way handshake and how it's manipulated in order to see if ports are open. And I can teach them Metasploit. So, a lot of the training I've got in InfoSec goes into my classes, and we actually do it. We just don't talk about it. So, but when they graduate, I hope they're ready. But I can't teach everybody everything. It's the same way if you get an accounting degree. If you get an accounting degree, you come out and then you take the CPA, or you don't take the CPAs. There's tons of people who don't take the CPA, or I'll figure it out later. Some people go into music, I heard. But you can't teach them everything. It's just one career path. There are multiple career paths into this. So I'm just trying to see if you all have anything that I haven't thought of more than anything else. There's a bunch of questions in the room. I'm going to try to get to everyone. Yes, sir?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, in the real world, it seems to me people running into HR. How do you get past HR?
Eliminate them. No, it's an education thing. It's a cultural change, and we as a community have to be part of the cultural change. I think also security and IT in general is viewed as a cost center. I'm not spending any more money on that. And then you get breached, and it's like, oh shit.
And even if you do spend
No, it isn't. For 6 or 7 months, then it's a lot. I think my point about getting past HR may have been misunderstood.
Go ahead.
The difficulty is that how do you get creative people or philosophical thinkers past HR who's just slammed themselves through, and they don't see a cert or a license.
I understand.
They just move on past that person. How many people are we skipping over?
Yeah.
Like, some of the best autodidacts have resumes that just look atrocious. They look awful on paper, but you sit them down at a task and they'll figure it out on their own and not
So it's really
all
just,
they resources.
how do you identify the appropriate skills, and how do you even know what those are?
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Without having some government agency tell you what those skills are and write a taxonomy about what those skills are and then match those up with keywords. Yes, I think that we've gone about it in the wrong way.
I mean, how could you test those skills without some sort of lab environment?
You can't really.
So,
Arm wrestling, perhaps?
Why aren't we talking about designing lab environments that can assess
Well,
particular
that's
skills
maybe
that-
part of the discussion that needs to be happen. Like I said, I'm opening this up to the community. So I get up the website running. Does anyone know anything about websites? I'm kidding. What I'll try to do is make it in a wiki or a discussion format. I might decide to move it to something else. But anyway, the idea, keep an eye for the skillsgap.org. I'm like Jason Street. I make the website and then I figure out the project that goes onto it later. Well, that's the reason that I had to get it like right now. I was upstairs in my hotel room in my underwear. That's a long story. But anyway, no. I didn't tell him because I knew how he is. Yes, sir.
I think there was a comment earlier about how there's a lot of information online, and if you haven't done any of that, then maybe you're lazy. And I think that mindset is detrimental to our goals here. I think that there is a barrier of entry in the form of intimidation.
Yeah, I agree.
Things of that nature. And I've had so many experiences where I show somebody something that is very simple and their mind is blown, and suddenly they are looking for those things.
Right.
When they would have never looked for them before.
Right. You're right,
I
because
think if we're honest, if the people are already looking up those tutorials and working through this stuff on themselves,
they don't
they're
need
on
us.
track.
They don't
We
need
already
us.
have that. It's getting more people to do that we need to do.
Yes, ma'am.
Expanding on that point, another factor is you're talking about taking like this old coal miner or whatever. Well, there's also a lot of people who are already working jobs, are already struggling to make ends meet and whatnot, and they might not have the time to be able to
Yeah.
look that up on their own.
That's very true. That's very true.
This is a problem with the new generation. When I grew up, it was cool to go to vocational school.
Yeah.
You would learn to be a heating and air conditioning tech, an automotive repair, a body shop
Mhm.
guy. That was half of your day in high school, and you went and did that. That's becoming back in vogue again, but that hasn't been in vogue. Everybody has to go to college.
I think,
Everybody has to get
yeah, well, I think that we have to start, when I talk about,
getting those
yeah.
schools.
That's the reason Gen Cyber, I think, is so important. The other thing we need to teach Python to, I've taught Python to kids as young as 8 years old. And I know, I use them all the time. So you just have to get them started, and they're better programmers than I am by the time they're done. They're going through the book. And every summer I teach 2 or 3 camps, but there's only one of me. If you can get teachers to teach these skill sets, it's not just security, it's also all the other things. It's development, too. Secure coding would be a good thing to teach in college. Yes, sir.
So if we need mentors in this space, should mentorship programs be like their own goodwill, like giving to the community?
I think so.
Or should it be like your workplace saying like these will be like community service hours for you?
No, I think
How are you
either
supposed to
both.
motivate people?
I think it's both. I mean, at my university, I'm from Marshall. I've already said that early. We have the only Hackers for Charity student group. And so that's one of the things they could do is mentor people, even though they're not perfect, but especially middle school or high schoolers who want to learn more about it. And hacker spaces are popping up all over the place. I got a Raspberry Pi group at our local hacker space.
One just burned down in North Carolina.
That's awful.
Yeah. So Benjamin Liddy is here. He's like the one who like created the hacker space.
Yeah.
It's like enormous place.
Yes, sir.
So to follow up on what you were saying, one of the big issues is that lower school education right now doesn't teach critical thinking skills at all. Those courses are gone because you have tests that you have to learn how to.
Right.
So when you get people up to a point in education where you are showing them how critical thinking works, a lot of them can take off on their own.
Yeah.
But we don't have anything to get them from where they leave school at to pursuing careers.
That's usually what happens in college. Is part of it's critical thinking is usually a part of the part of what they're supposed to learn. So I have an FYS 100 class, which is critical thinking, and I teach the history of Anonymous. So they get to find out about new fags, old fags, all this sort of thing. But in the end, what we're really talking about is how do you evaluate things you find online or research, and how do you write about that, and how do you think about it, and metacognitive thinking and intercultural thinking as well. So honestly, we're not teaching critical thinking now until you get to grade 13, freshman in college. And it's probably way too late. Yes, sir.
So one of the things that, beyond the critical thinking aspect, I think a lot of the colleges are trying to build programs in InfoSec that cover everything, which is basically impossible. You find a bunch that are trying to do attack-focused programs or pen testing, and there's ethical issues. They don't want to get hands-on.
We get hands-on. It's possible.
Some do, some don't.
It's possible.
But my point is, on the defense side, there's not as many that are actually touching keyboard and doing stuff.
Yeah, I'm actually, that's something we're working in my program. That's something I'm working on.
I mean, that's another aspect of all of the kind of learning resources that are online, because there are tons of environments where you can practically actually practice pen testing skills, but they're
not for defense.
Nowhere near
Yeah, we
defense. There's a little bit more for forensics.
our school plays in CCDC every year, and every year they lose. We never make it. We don't even make it. Because they're so focused on popping boxes and cracking hashes, and I'm like, you're supposed to stop people from doing that. Can you not turn that on its head? So
There should be a lab environment that's accessible online for people to practice actual defensive skills.
yeah, well, I think that. Go ahead.
Being attacked in a defensive environment, though.
There's enough.
It's easily complex to
Yeah.
build up that infrastructure.
Well, part of it too. Well, I mean, the CCDC qualifiers for the Mid-Atlantic, aren't they automated? I thought get Mubix in here. I honestly thought it was automated.
The red team attacks, and there's no real traffic.
Yeah.
There's no legitimate traffic.
Well, I mean, that's something. I'm running out of time. My knees are about to collapse. I have really bad knees. Next year, I'll have new knees, and I can stand up here for a talk that goes on for 50 minutes. But that's something we need to think about. So I'll get the website up and running. Yes, sir, real quick.
One final question. There exist communities and organizations that their sole purpose is to job train. Veterans, homeless people, all that kind of stuff. Have there been efforts to kind of merge those types of organizations with organizations like OWASP or something?
Yeah, not that I'm aware, and I think that's a great idea. I haven't heard of them. I'm done. I've got the cut signal. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't bore you to death. Your test is on Friday, and remember to turn in all of your assignments tonight at midnight.
Are you grading on the curve or stuff there?
Of course.
All right, let's throw it.
And it's on silk.